with Intention, podcast where we bring you stories from around the globe. Hello and welcome back to another episode on Rise and Thrive, Mornings with Intention. And today I have a wonderful guest with me, Roberta Campbell. Welcome, dear. How are you today?
Hi, Eva. I am great. How are you?
I'm doing great as well. Thank you so much for being here with us. And please tell us a little bit about yourself and where you are in the world right now.
I am in the Midwest in the United States, and I grew up here. I've spent my whole life here. I grew up in a very small town, probably about 20 miles east of Cincinnati, Ohio, and such a small town that I graduated high school with 28 people in my
Wow.
whole graduating class. So the good thing about going to a smaller school is I had more opportunity. And so I was able to do a lot of sports and everything else. So it was good. It was a really good thing. And you know, I went to cosmetology school, and when I was 18, I started working full time in a hair salon. And so that's became my life for the past, I don't know, 30 some years or whatever. And so yeah, at 23, I ended up getting married. And by the time I was 30, I had two children, two beautiful kids, a girl and a boy, and thought I had it all. You know, we had this beautiful home that we built. We lived on 5 acres, and we just had this, yeah, really nice place for our kids to grow up. But I felt like there was always something missing. And and I didn't understand that for a long time. And so I felt like I went through my life almost like this imposter, right? Imposter syndrome. And so I just kept going on and I was kind of like a chameleon. I would just do what everyone else was doing. And it just one day I was like, what am I here for? What is my purpose? I know it's more than this. I love my children. I based my life around my children, but I wanted to contribute more to society. And, throughout this process, my husband and I, we ended up getting divorced and we were married for 16 years, a long time. Yes. And so after the divorce, I just thought, okay, I'm just going to move on with my life. Everything will be fine. And that's not what happened. And so I found out that I needed some time. I needed to spend some time on me. And so when my kids were out of high school, so I became an empty nester. My kids were in college, and I was like, all right, I'm going to sell this house and it's time for me. Okay. I found this cute little apartment and I started working on me. Um, but just 3 weeks later, my daughter, who was 22 years old at the time, um, she was walking across the street in a crosswalk and was hit by a car.
Wow.
And so she suffered a traumatic brain injury and other invisible injuries. She has nerve damage on her left foot. And obviously, she has, neck and back issues too. And I was in California at that time. And so she was in Ohio. So I had to come back home and take care of her. And she was in and out of the hospital, three different hospitals, 2 weeks. It was hell. I'm sorry. It was really bad. I didn't understand her injuries. She didn't have a lot of scrapes and bruises or broken bones. So it was really hard for other people to understand too, because she looked okay, so it was all internal. She had that bleeding, bruising, and swelling on her brain. And
Yeah.
that caused migraine headaches that she still suffers from today. So, we were on a journey. She had to move back in with me. She was a college student at that time, living her best life. And then she had to move in with me. And we just adjusted and made changes and tried to work on her healing for, oh my goodness, I'm going to tell you, a year or two. And it was very confusing. She was struggling. I was struggling to understand. And this is, there came a point, and it was in 2020 that I will say I hit rock bottom. I had taken, I'd done everything I could. I didn't know what else I could do to help her. I felt helpless. I had spent all of my savings from the house that I had sold on her recovery. And it was just very aggravating. And I said, you know what? I'm just not okay with this. Something has to change. And so I remember that point of where I was just I had to give it up and say, I I give in, I let go, and I walked down to the river and I had this conversation with God, basically. And I asked for help because I knew I couldn't do it on my own anymore. And do you know, right after that, things began to change and things came to me. And I started digging into research to help her with traumatic brain injury, this concussion that she had. And so the more I did, I was like, oh my gosh, there are so many people that are struggling because, first of all, I just want to say a lot of people have a concussion, but don't understand that it is categorized as a traumatic brain injury or TBI for short.
Mhm.
And so I was like, we have to help others. And so my purpose is now coming to me through this. And I was like, I'm going to write a book. I
Mhm.
have always wanted to write a book. And probably 10 or 15 years ago, I had shared with someone that I wanted to write a book, and they laughed in my face because I hadn't gone to college. How was I going to write a book? And it kind of like, I was like, yeah, you're probably right. I probably
Mhm.
can't do that.
Yeah.
And so for me to think in 2020, 2021, oh, I'm going to write a book, I was like, I'm going to do it. I don't know how, but I'm going to do this. And so I began that journey of writing. And through that, I spoke to a friend. I shared this with her. She introduced me to one of her clients who was an editor for a publishing company. And so everything started coming to me because I asked
Mhm.
and I was, listening to my intuition
Yeah.
and aware.
That's wow, so many things you went through, and I applaud you. So I want to get back to the book you wrote, but in the meantime, I actually want to go back to kind of what happened with your daughter. So to get in more depth of the situation, so can you take us back? And I know it can be a moment that's hard. But can you take us back to when you first received a call about the Paige accident, and how did that moment change everything for you all of a sudden?
Oh gosh. So I was in, like I told you, thousands of miles away. And I mean, I was in California, so it was beautiful. I was enjoying my life. And I was there for hair extension training, actually. So I was expanding my career as well. And so when that call came in, I didn't understand. I couldn't, it was very confusing,
Yeah.
at first because I'm like, wait a minute. I I don't understand this. Like I didn't want to accept it, I guess.
Yeah, yeah. So somebody called you that she was in the hospital, or like what happened? Like what was the first thing, like how can this happen into, is it really my daughter, or was there a mistake? Like what were those thoughts that were going through your head?
Well, so here's what's interesting. So I actually spoke to her. She called me.
Oh, okay.
And that's why I was like, "Oh, like maybe okay." I was confused. I thought she was in a car accident. Like nothing made sense.
Yeah.
Nothing. And
Okay.
and this is California time, so I don't know, it was very, very early.
Mm-hmm.
And it took a few conversations to understand what was going on. And I had a friend traveling with me, and she was a nurse. So, I was speaking to doctors not really understanding what they were saying. But luckily, I had my friend with me who could kind of translate, and she's like, "No, I think it's going to be okay." And I'm like, "Oh my gosh!" So the both of us had to travel back. The same day. There's no direct flight. It took
Mhm.
forever. Two flights. I could not get home fast enough. That's
Yeah.
all I wanted. All I wanted to do was to be home with my daughter. And I'm going to tell you, at this time, she was estranged from her father. So sh I was all she had.
Hmm.
And it was the longest day of my life.
Yeah. And that's why I wanted to get into it. Like, what were your emotions? Like, what was like your mind was racing. You couldn't get there. You couldn't collapse time fast enough to get her, to get to her. And so that was probably one of the most challenging times. Or like, what would you say was the most difficult time during that first initial day or two?
It was the understanding. Because for someone to be able to talk to her and speak to her on the phone, I thought, okay, okay, she can talk. This is good. She can have a conversation with me. But when I got home, it was late in the evening and she seemed to be doing okay.
Mm-hmm.
And this was interesting. The next morning, she woke up, she was in excruciating pain.
Okay.
And it was confusing.
Mm-hmm.
Because, she seemed to be doing okay the night before. But what I didn't understand was that now, every day, there was more bleeding, bruising, and swelling on the brain. So it kept getting worse.
Okay.
I didn't understand that. Maybe somebody tried to explain it to me, but it was very confusing. And they were saying too, they were just watching her to make sure that she didn't have to have surgery. So that was always on the table of perhaps having to take some of that pressure off of her brain.
Mm-hmm.
Um, it was for someone that has never dealt with that, I was completely at a loss. And to see her, like she would lay there, but she couldn't stand any sound because of that migraine. So every day she would have a worse migraine. She couldn't stand any sound or any light on her eyes. So, plus she had injury to her left foot. So moving around, everything was difficult. And I will tell you, a friend shared with me while she was in the hospital some things that she could potentially be dealing with when we got home, like behavioral changes. And I had no idea.
Wow. So how was she, because obviously all of a sudden there's so many different things happening, challenges. How was she like, she had the pain, but her mind, was she still like what was going through her mind? Did she say, did she communicate that already with you, or she was also like, not sure what's happening, mom? Like, can you explain that in more depth so people can understand?
Yeah, she was in so much pain that she really she could barely eat or talk, would even just talking would hurt. But it seemed like it was worse in the morning.
Mm-hmm.
And then once they would get a little medicine in her, she'd be okay for a little bit. And then, then when the medicine would wear off, the pounding, she said it was just pounding. And she just wanted to like, she would take my hand and she's like, oh, just get it out.
Mm-hmm.
There was, oh, she was not in a good place. And neither was and at that time, I look at where I'm at there and where I'm at now, and I know that could handle things a little better today, but that understanding, I don't think anybody could explain it to you,
Mm-hmm.
what she was going through. And they released her 5 days later from that hospital. And I thought, how can you, she's not ready to go home. She's not okay. She can't even open her eyes. Like she can barely walk around. We're in an apartment. Luckily, we had an elevator. So there were so many things. I didn't even have a bed for her. Like
Mhm.
my life had just been turned upside down.
Wow.
And, you know, we didn't know. There was so much that just wasn't known. So they sent her home early. And on the way home, I mean, I drove her home. And if I hit a little bump in the road, she would be like, oh, you know, just that pain that she was in. Oh my gosh, it was awful. It broke my heart. And I knew she wasn't ready to go home, but I didn't know what to do. I had no idea what to do. And I'm going to tell you, if I was going to do it again, I would have drove her straight over to another hospital, to the emergency room, because I don't believe that she got the proper care or understanding. Um, and this is true because I did get her to another hospital. Like, I don't know if it was the next day. They did another brain scan
Hmm.
and they noticed that she had had more swelling on her brain. So the pressure just kept getting worse. So now she's home with me, you know, and she was in so much pain. And I got her to the other hospital and they sent her to another one. And within 24 hours, she was feeling a little better.
Hmm.
So they found the right combination of, I guess, of prescription or whatever she needed at that time to take the swelling off of the brain. So she got a little relief. So she came home, and this was about 2 weeks out now. And we're like, okay, we're ready to move on. I thought, okay, now we can move on. This is good. But I'm going to tell you, things got bad. They got worse
Hmm.
because you go through these behavioral changes. So when the car hit her, it hit her forehead, her frontal, and then it threw her back as he stopped, I guess as they stopped, it threw her back and it cracked the back of her skull. So wherever you hit your head determines how it affects you. And the frontal is mood.
Hmm. Yes.
So she started she had like PTSD and she was angry. She had no idea. She couldn't help it.
Yeah.
And she was just so, I think she was just also angry at the situation that she was in. You know, she couldn't
Hmm.
move around. Um, her head still migraines every day, and this mood that she couldn't control. I'm like, I'm trying to help her, and it's hard when somebody, isn't so nice to you, and she would tell you she didn't do it on purpose. She didn't mean to. She couldn't help herself, and we made it through. But it was a while. It took a while.
You mentioned that it cracked her skull in the back.
Mhm.
So when she went to the hospital initially, then they didn't see that, or they
No.
did they miss?
Oh
They saw
yeah. Yeah. But
it. So,
but so they were watching everything, they
mhm,
said, to see just to make sure that there wasn't more. They know you can get more
mhm.
swelling on the brain after that. Um, yeah, so
It's
I
just
don't know.
Yeah, just listening to that, it's kind of like I can't imagine because I've never been in that situation, and I mean my kid's been sick before for 1 week one time with high fever, and looking at them, you're trying to help them, and you feel so helpless sometimes because you only can do so much, right? And then you just pray that they're gonna recover as fast as they can. But what your daughter went through, and both of you even, I can't even imagine because it's on such a different scale, right? But I feel for you, and I wish, like, turn back time, they would have really looked into it more closely. But like you said, it is an invisible injury and it
Yeah.
starts progressing, like you mentioned. So how was the next month or two after that?
Oh gosh. So then we were just trying to get her into therapy. And oh, she needed physical therapy for her foot, but there's so many different types of therapy for the brain injury. And it also there's so many things like nutrition is very important. But and she was vegetarian, so she's very particular. But she resorted back to eating kind of bad. Like she just only wanted pizza and milkshakes and things like that. So that wasn't helping her. But so I had to work really hard because now I knew I had um to give her the best nutrition that I could. So I changed my diet through this. I basically became vegetarian myself
Hmm. Wow.
because now she's back with me. So, and I'm taking care of her. So I changed a lot of things for the better and in my health as well. We got her into therapy. There was vestibular therapy. There's her eyes weren't converging.
Hmm.
So she had to do all of this therapy for her eyes.
Wow.
Yeah.
Whew.
Then tonics and all of these other things. I'm trying to work at the time. So she's going to therapy. And at first, we had to take her. My parents stepped it up and they helped out and they would take her when I couldn't. And she had probably over 300 doctor appointments and physical therapy and all
Wow.
of this within the first year or two. It
Whew.
was a lot.
That's a lot.
So, yes.
Lot.
And
Wow.
we tried, but the thing was, there was way more. There was more. So I would research and I kept finding more, like MCT oil, which is a form of
Yeah.
coconut oil.
Yes. Yeah.
Phenomenal for the brain. Phenomenal. Everybody should be taking this. So then I started, adding all of these good um supplements in her as well. So I would take them too, right?
Yeah.
Like
Omega
help me.
3s, MCT. Yeah. There's lots of
Yeah.
great brain foods which we should be using, and sometimes we forget. Even if,
Yes.
you know,
Yeah.
everything seems fine, we should still be helping our body, because a lot of the things out there we or we have those moments when we eat the foods we shouldn't, we still need to give our body the proper nutrition. So
Yeah.
yeah, it's important with or without the injury, right? But
Yeah.
yeah, so wow, I applaud you for being such a strong mama.
Oh my gosh, thank
Thanks
you.
so
I
much.
did thank you. I did not always feel so strong, I can tell you that. But I want to tell you, so at this time, the both of us were in support groups. So I was in a support group for survivors of traumatic brain injuries and their families. And I started noticing that so many people were struggling. And I'm like, oh, like I want to help everyone because as she started to improve a little bit, I was like, yes, I want to help these people. So that's where the book came about too. And all of those supplements, all of the things that she did, all of the therapy and everything, we started putting that together. And I said, is there any way that you could contribute to this book, that you could co-write it with me? Because I think they need to hear your voice too, what you were going through.
Hmm.
And in the book, I'm going to tell you, like, it was her side too that she was suicidal. She was so miserable. And I mean, I knew this, but I didn't maybe know how extreme.
Yeah.
So that was really rough actually reading the book again and seeing what she went through.
Wow.
Uh,
So tell us the name of the book and where can people who have maybe somebody who went through similar situation, where they can read up on it.
yeah, so I want to tell you, so when I first started it, it was invisible injury, invisible disability. That was kind of like what was coming to me. But as people kept looking at her, the one thing that they would say, and she's a cute girl, and they would just look at her and they'd be like, yeah, but she looks fine.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, and it drove me crazy because I'm like, oh my gosh. See, I told you, no broken bones, not a lot of scrapes and bruises. Some, yes,
Yeah.
but for the most part, she did look fine. And I thought, oh, that was the perfect title
I know.
for this book. She looks fine. And I'm going to tell you, it's not just her, it's not just my daughter. I think it's a lot of us, probably most of us that are walking around and we do look fine and we are dealing with things, whatever that may be. But in her case, hers was this traumatic brain injury. And I also want to tell people that a concussion is a traumatic brain injury. And anytime that you are in a car accident, here's the thing, a concussion, you don't have to hit your head. It can be just that jolt of your head moving. So
Whiplash.
a lot, yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. Your
Wow.
brain like moving inside your head. And so uh I can see that people that have had concussions have a low immune system. Yeah.
Yeah.
And one thing that came about through this, interestingly enough, is that I was like, wait a minute. When I was 3, I fell and I cracked my skull.
Wow.
And it made me think, did I have a concussion? I cracked my skull. I pretty well know, you know, but it wasn't like my daughter's. Don't get me wrong. I'm not
Yeah.
saying that. And I didn't want to, I didn't feel right about talking about it at first. But then I thought, no, I have to because I have had a low immune system my entire life. And how do I know? Because I had seasonal allergies, because I had acne all over my face. Those are signs of a low immune system. And I have 2 older sisters. They didn't have that. They never dealt with those things. And so that's why I'm like, that had to be from that concussion that I had. I don't believe it knocked me out unconscious, as to my knowledge. I don't really remember that accident. And but it just made me think people need to know because they don't, there's a lot of confusion here. And I think the term traumatic brain injury or TBI is very new to a lot of people. So, and then looking at my incident, I thought, okay, we have to help people.
Yeah.
And so this has been our mission. And, we're just getting started. We've been able to be keynote speakers for brain health associations and doing whatever we can to raise awareness.
That's really really important because a lot of people I feel like out there, we learn, we study, but sometimes we don't educate ourselves as much as we should on certain things. And it's funny because I myself couldn't wait until I finished high school. But now, like, I've entered this state in my life where it's like I just can't stop learning. I pick up another book, I read it, I finish, and it's like I'm addicted to learning. I mean, we can never learn everything. Let's face it, but it's so nice to be in the know. And if something does happen, it definitely does help us get through something much maybe faster, better. The results might be, come to us much quicker. So I totally understand it, but yeah, sometimes it definitely becomes a very long learning.
Yeah.
And in your case, you had to go through so much because you've never had to go through that. Like, and all of a sudden here you are with something so hard for mom to see and deal with. You not only need to help her, but now you need somebody to keep uplift you. So even going back to what you said earlier, how has faith been in all this for you? Like, was there moments where you're just like, God, like, can you tell us a little bit about that? Like those
Uh,
moments?
Faith is everything. And my faith has grown so much in the past couple of years. But when we look at things, okay, so when we're talking about faith, because I could have saved myself a lot of turmoil, I will tell you. My faith wasn't as strong as it could have been. And maybe this was part of the reason why I was supposed to, you know, go through some things to strengthen my faith. But when we really look at that and we say, you know what? Everything always works out. It does. So how about let's expect it to work out in the very best. I'm going to expect the very best outcome for for any situation. Because why do we go to the worst? We automatically say, okay, worst case scenario, I've done that.
Yeah, me too.
Why? Why? Because the thing is, when you're looking for the best case scenario, it's going to come to you. And everything that we went through just made us who we are today. And we struggled for a while. I felt like maybe we wouldn't have struggled as long, but I needed to go through all of this. And the both of us, she and I both, our faith is so, so strong. And I just know it's going to work out everything. And it has sent me on this path, this horrible incident in our lives, changed our lives, not not for the best at first, but where I'm at today, absolutely. Because if I wouldn't have been through that, I wouldn't have done the work and on myself too, to put myself in a better place. And I'm like you. I love learning. I love reading. Just started a new book, could not, don't want to put it down. And then also just you hear something, we're surrounded by answers. All we have to do is go to Google or YouTube. We
Yeah,
can find, and you can find the answers. Do your research. Do your research because
definitely.
there are alternatives to things. And when you have, okay, let's just say, for instance, so, you know, migraines. So if you have a migraine, and I can't imagine having one almost every day. I think I've only had a few my entire life.
Well, I've had a share of those before. They're not
Oh,
nice. Hmm. It's a
awful,
nice way of putting it. They're not nice.
right?
Yeah.
No, not at all. But instead of when that happens, a lot of times we just grab for like a pill, like something that we're going to take. Like this will take it away.
Mhm.
Just we're looking for that quick
Quick fix,
whatever.
I call it.
Yeah, quick fix. Okay. But instead of that, I just read recently, if you soak your feet in really hot water, it's supposed to help your migraine. Just
Wow.
soaking your feet in hot water.
For how long would you say?
I
Is
would say 5 to 10 minutes
it 10
at
minutes?
least. Yes.
Soak it up.
Yes. This is something new that I just came upon. And she said, I just heard that too. So, so try that, try those things. What about essential oils, peppermint oil.
Mm-hmm.
Um, try try that. Try natural things first. I want holistic remedies first.
Yes.
And if I've tried all of those things, then I may have to take the Tylenol or whatever it may be.
Yeah.
But I don't reach for those like I used to anymore.
But you know why people reach out to so much, quick fix?
Hmm.
Because the world is so busy now. People, it's like, we're kind of programmed. Oh, I don't have time for a headache. Here's a quick fix, and they're like, oh,
Right?
it helps. And then you kind of brush it under, right? It
Yeah.
helps, right? But
Yeah.
for the most part, we're too busy as I would say humanity to get to the root of something. So we do a temporarily quick fix because, hey, I gotta go drop off my kid. Hey, I gotta go to work. I gotta suffer through the 8 hours. Hopefully this pill will help me, and it sometimes does backfire in the long run because you say there's a certain things we neglected for too long and eventually, but it's just,
Yeah.
rare cases. But I found that myself too, before I used to take pills every day because I used to have headache nonstop since when I was growing up, headache every day, and my migraine usually would last for about 3 days. I would get to the point so sick that I would be throwing up, and until my body, not me, my body forced it to throw up. I'm sorry, this is the
Mm,
topic.
right.
I would not feel any better until my body forced itself. And then all of a sudden I would start feeling better, and then the headache was gone like that. But then it took me, I could feel like my brain would be fried for at least a day because the 3 day you suffer, that headache's there. You can't kill it with anything. Once it
Yeah.
releases with then all of a sudden it's like, okay, now a day of like kind of like, whew, this feels good. My brain feels like it's fried, but I'll be better tomorrow. And I would go through that every like 6 months or so, or whatever, right? Because even when I was growing up, when I was a teenager, same thing. I would have lots of headaches, but not so much the throwing up part. But it takes a lot out of you. It
Yeah.
does.
It really
So
does.
imagine when your brain's hurting, your foot's hurting, all these things that
Mhm.
need attention.
Yeah.
And sometimes we want to do is take that drug that will help us, Sometimes, yeah, we need to go back to natural healing, you know? So,
Yes. Yes, we do.
yeah.
And that's why once, we were into that, I mean, just you would not believe the prescriptions that she had. And she's like, she even knew. She's like, I do not want to take this. I know it's not good for me. We're gonna try. Let's do what we need to do,
Yeah.
to so I don't have to do that. Because you can't take that forever. Temporarily,
Yeah.
okay.
Yeah. I mean, when
Sometimes.
it's something life-threatening, yeah, we
Yeah.
do have to sometimes do things we don't want to. But when you have that room to actually go back and really, study or listen to your body, take the holistic approach, that's better for you in the long run, right? So,
Yeah,
yeah. So I
absolutely.
betcha your book is full of those healing remedies in there.
Yes. Yes, absolutely.
Yeah, so I'm gonna be, yes, I confess I haven't read the whole book. So
Yeah.
I'm also gonna go get one because, on and off we get things, and holistic healing is very important. But one thing I want to ask you, looking back at all of this, is there a specific thing or maybe resources or support systems that you wish you had access to that could have made a big difference in both your life and Paige's life recovery? Was there something you wish you knew right away at the beginning?
Well, first of all, I wanted to finish that. You can find our book on Amazon. So I didn't take, yes, thank you. I wanted to add that in there. So yes, our book's on Amazon. And so resource, or what do I wish we could have had? Oh,
Sometimes you're like, oh, I wish I had that right at the beginning. Was there something specific or not in this case?
I I wish I had a better understanding. And you're at the hospital. I was not in a good place, and they do have like social workers and people you can talk to, but I'm like, I think you still don't understand. Like, I have no idea what's going on here. And so I just, if I would have had a better understanding and guidance into what I was getting into, because this was years. This wasn't just, a couple of weeks. This was years um, of therapy for her. So I don't even know. I've talked to some other people that had situations and they spent a lot more time um in therapy and different types. So I think it's just support. The doctor did say he said, look, I recommend you joining support groups. Oh, I had no idea how valuable that would be. It's difficult, but it was also very valuable. So support groups are amazing. Groups, community in any case, I think is so good because you're like, oh, I can see what other people are going through. It's also difficult because it's also just really hurts your heart to watch others when so many people out there needed help. The thing is that holistic and alternative treatments are expensive. They just are. And so a lot of people can't get the help that they need because it's out of pocket. All of the things that she did, like even this seeing physical therapist that did cranial sacral therapy on her. I don't know if you've heard of that, but I had never. And that helped her tremendously. So there were all of these things that were available, but most people can't afford them. So what can we do to help
Yeah.
others? Oxygen therapy she was able to do, but people needed, if they could get in and do that, it could change their life.
Yeah.
It could have helped them so much.
And that's why, for the most part, yeah, sometimes money plays the role, time sometimes is a big effect because, you may not have that time and you need the medication or something right away, right? So I understand the whole point about, well, I don't have the money or, well, I am whatever it may be. But when you do can and do more research on a certain thing, then I strongly suggest do it. Because you never know what might come up next. And when we have that knowledge and wisdom, it does help. And, join the communities, everything does help. Like there were certain things I was going through when I was a child or young teenager. And even then, I wish I knew things back then or had places to turn to, and I didn't. And then you find later it's like, oh my God, all these things are at our fingertips. But how many times do we dismiss something? Oh, it's like, oh, I'll just rather watch TV. I'm sure it'll solve it by itself. Or, oh, I'm sure, it's like, well, no, like sometimes we have to really sit down, look at ourselves, our situations, and try to pick the best method or solution for whatever we're going through, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. We're just doing the best that we can.
Yeah. But the minute we give up, that's it, that's why even I wrote in the book Never Give Up about my youth struggles. And there's always a way, there's always a person
Yeah.
that's there. And like you mentioned before, I think it was just before the show, like just pray, have that faith and the answers will come. When
Yeah.
you make that decision that you want answers, they will come. But when you constantly like, going not sure, just be still, listen to yourself and it will guide you, So it's really
Think,
important.
yeah, faith, be still. You're right. Yes. And where I was frantic for such a long time. And I needed to slow down. Just slow down. It's okay.
Yeah.
All right. We just slow down a little bit and know that everything is going to work out. one
Yeah.
way or another. And it may not work out the way that you wanted, but maybe that's how it's supposed to be. Maybe
Yeah.
there's a lesson to be learned. We don't know.
Yeah.
And so I'm so much more open now and I'm so much more relaxed. If you saw me a few years ago, I was not very
Different
relaxed.
story, eh? Yeah, that's why I look at you
Very
like,
different.
wow, you well put together for somebody who went through so much, you know?
Oh my goodness. It took a lot of inner work, as you know, inner
Yeah.
work. And yeah, I'm in a really, really good place now.
Yeah.
So, and we're just doing the best that we can.
Yeah, and I love your calmness. It definitely comes through. But like you said, probably a while back, it wouldn't be the same girl I'm talking to, right? So, yeah.
Yes.
But it does take inner work. You're absolutely right. Nobody else is gonna do it for you except us ourselves. So that is definitely true. So tell us, because this is Rise and Thrive Mornings with Intention. Is there something you do in the mornings that you set the intention for the day? If you do, tell us what it is, if you can, and how important it is for you.
Oh, thank you for the question. It's so important because the first thing you do in the morning sets your intention for the rest of the day. So, starting off in the morning, when my alarm goes off, I want to be like, have a nice, peaceful moment. I don't like to jump out of bed and be in a rush because I don't feel good. So I will even set my alarm earlier and give myself time to just get up and have some time to reflect, to journal, to just look and say thank you. Just have a moment of gratitude. I may not have time to write in my journal, but it may just be that moment, a few minutes of giving thanks, and it sets my tone for the day. And that's one of the biggest things. Also, what does your alarm do when it goes off? Because if it's an irritating noise, change it. Sometimes we don't realize,
Yeah,
you know, I've been playing around with that, some different sounds or
yeah,
songs on my alarm. So wake up and put yourself in a good mood. And guess what? If you look outside and it's raining or it's cold and don't start off by whining. Whatever the weather is, embrace it. You can't change it. So the days that it's rainy or cold, I'm like, oh, okay, I'm gonna take it a little easy today. Maybe I'll get to read a little bit more. I'm gonna
yeah.
give yourself grace.
I love that. That's brilliant. Yeah, I used to have the annoying alarm too, and over the last years I changed it too. I wake up to a nice soft one. And yeah, there's times I like to go back and sleep, so I have a backup one on top of a backup, so I do get up
Right?
eventually. But because sometimes you want those like extra minute or two, but yeah, and if it rains, I told myself, because sometimes we don't like certain weathers, right? But now even when it's raining, I'm like, oh, it's washing all the dirt away. Keep raining.
Right?
Like you tell yourself something, you change the way you look at things and the way
Yeah.
things, they do change. So yeah, kind of
Yeah,
like, with all the personal development, tricks and stuff we have, it's so many tools at hand, we got to use them,
we do.
make the day brighter. So I hope everybody enjoyed this beautiful podcast. And if there's anything either one of us can help you with, please reach out. And we are here for you. In this video, we'll definitely share bio about my special guest today and all the links to her social media and Amazon so you can go and purchase the book. Once again, thank you so much for being on my podcast, Roberta. It's been such a great honor to have you here.
Oh, thank you, Eva. I appreciate you so much. Thank
Same
you.
here, and thank you everyone for listening, and see you soon again. Thank you.